Pranking and teasing can be fun by nature, but if you are unable to understand the proper context for doing so, then you probably shouldn't do it at all. Even worse is if you are unwilling to heed the proper context for having fun at the expense of others, then you deserve whatever consequences ensue. We've known for a while that Rainbow Dash enjoys pranking, but at some point in time and for whatever reason, she forgot to check if her jokes were being played on the right person or at the right time, or even if the pranks were physically harmful. Then, she didn't listen to the concerns of her friends, which we should all know by now only causes the problems to grow out of control and cause situations like what we saw in 28 Pranks Later. Whenever I see a situation like this in the show, I'm actually quite grateful. Mostly because in life, the situation rarely ends this peacefully or even without a lingering grudge, so perhaps we can all learn something from that in itself. But while I am all for forgiveness, the concept of discretion is often foreign to those with a malicious sense of humor, so they need to be taught, especially when the pranking turns into a form of bullying as it did in this episode. That being said, one of the best ways to deal with an unreasonable bully is to show them that they could lose something that they love as a consequence for their actions. This is why Pinkie Pie had to organize her zombie prank. To elaborate, imagine being in Rainbow Dash's position and pulling a quote-unquote harmless prank only to end up hurting all of your friends in some way. Imagine that prank causing your friends to turn on you or attack you in retaliation. Frankly, that concept should be terrifying. This tends to be where people say that 28 Pranks Later is the same as Mysterious Mare Do-Well, and call it hypocritical in the same way that that episode was, which is a notion that I highly disagree with in the first place. Despite some basic similarities, Mysterious Mare Do-Well showed Rainbow Dash that helping others with humility and pure intentions is a much more effective method in what it's trying to achieve. Since then, Rainbow Dash has built on this lesson and demonstrated it to others. 28 Pranks Later is about using a similar method to create empathy for a perspective that Rainbow Dash had forgotten without Pinkie Pie being there to act as her conscience. On the ladder of escalation for dealing with a bully, this falls somewhere between opening a conversation with the aggressor and creating a consequence through authority. Unfortunately, it is occasionally necessary that we teach others empathy by giving them a taste of their own medicine. For some people, it's the only way that they learn, especially when they're being ignorant about what they're doing to other people. But if you must give this demonstration, be certain that your actions contain no trace of revenge. Vengeful intentions create hatred between both parties, like we saw through the Hooffields and McColts. Or like we saw in One Bad Apple, vengeful intentions will turn you into just as much of a bully as whoever you were retaliating against. However, giving this demonstration with the intention to teach empathy will give them an opportunity to be more aware of their actions as well as pass on this knowledge to others in the future. If you cannot do this, then it is probably best to cut ties with that person. As for those in these situations with a malicious sense of humor, you need to understand the appropriate context. I pick on my friends sometimes. Many of them pick on me right back, and it's hilarious. But these are friends that I know very well and are comfortable with. Pranks are always saved for those who enjoy pranks, as well as that we know have thick enough skin to be pranked without getting hurt. We know and respect each other's boundaries, and we stop when asked. So in short, pranks are not for everyone. This is where people with skewed priorities say that those who are sensitive to pranking just need to toughen up. While it may help them to toughen up, and I have talked about this importance before, that's not your responsibility. It's theirs, and whoever else they designate as their teacher in that regard. Or you may say that you have the right to do this to others. Perhaps, but only to a certain degree, and to no degree is the world around you required to tolerate this behavior. So at the point where you start threatening someone's health or livelihood with your actions, then you deserve however harsh a punishment is required to make you understand these things. Or maybe you shouldn't associate with people who can't handle your malicious sense of humor at all. That's your choice too. But there may come a point where this attitude leaves you lonely, and it will be nobody's fault but your own. Again, if you believe yourself to be above this kind of reprisal, and this concept doesn't terrify you, then your priorities require reassessment. Rainbow Dash allowed her ego to take over her actions, thus misunderstanding the pleas of her friends as a challenge. This led her to a heightened effort that endangered the trust and safety of her friends. Fortunately, she had friends who understood how to show her how that felt, so that Rainbow herself could examine her priorities and learn where her limits lay. We can do the same by trying to teach others empathy without involving a desire for revenge, as well as by understanding that the safety and trust of our friends is much more important than a cheap laugh at their expense. And that's the moral of the story. If you have a topic you would like to hear discussed, you can drop your suggestions by following Brawny Buck on Tumblr or sending an email to bronydebates@gmail.com. Feel free to check out my Patreon to see how you can support my channel and what you'll get in return. This video was sponsored by Irish John's Short Films and Animations, as well as all of my other generous supporters. Have a great day, and I look forward to hearing from all of you soon.